Today on 1% Better.
My guest today is baseball player Anthony Volpe. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I intentionally kept the intro brief. How's it sound, Anthony Volpe, baseball player?
It sounds pretty cool. I think, like you said, growing up, it's what I always dreamed about doing and dreamed about being. And it's pretty surreal to have an opportunity to make it official and make it to the major leagues. But at the same time, I think um, it's what I do. It's a part of who I am, but it's not fully who I am. So, um, yeah, I think it's pretty cool to hear, though.
I love that idea, and we can come back to identity. I was curious about the first time you remember putting words to the dream. Like, how old were you? What was the first time you consciously remember announcing to the world in some form that you wanted to be a Major League Baseball player?
Um, I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, I know like probably a lot of people, like my parents have like the first grade, what do you want to be when you grow up pictures that I wrote. And I said shortstop for the Yankees and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know if I necessarily, it was always kind of like maybe a far-fetched dream, but when my dad and I would always play, we'd always play Yankees against the Red Sox, or we'd just play games, whether it be at the park when I grew up in the city, or just in the living room when we'd play little football, whatever. It was always a competition, and we're always playing baseball, and that's what made it fun. And that's honestly, to this day, why I feel like I love baseball so much. Is this? It was just so much fun, and it's the same game I play now as the one I played back then.
So many of us, though, did that, right? I remember playing with my dad, and I was lucky enough to play in college, and a lot of people listening are coaches and athletes. But besides skill, there has to be something else that took you to that next level, right? I know you had some support along the way. You put the work in. But when you think of where you are today, let's timestamp this, December of 2022, what do you attribute, your success so far to?
I think it's a lot of things. Like you said, I've been super, super lucky to have a really great, amazing support system who have been with me every single step of the way with how big and loving my family is. And then all the coaches I had, including shout out to Coach Kyle who hooked us up. But I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people say like it takes like a village to help. And that's not just baseball. I mean, that's um, my aunts and my grandparents live with us, and they help take my sister and I to school. And I obviously can't thank them enough for everything they sacrificed and did to help me, whether it was baseball or, like I said, school, or just going to friends' houses and hanging out with them. So I definitely am super, super lucky to have a super big support system. I think that support and that loving family and everything like that helped me to work as hard as I wanted to and to pursue what I loved, and that was in a lot of times baseball.
How much of your 24 hours a day is consumed either playing, working towards, or thinking about baseball?
Um, I guess in the off seasons, depending on where I'm at, when I'm down in Tampa, um, really the first half of the day up until now really is baseball, and I kind of when I'm training, probably not as much as during the season, but when I'm done with baseball, I kind of like to try and shut it off and focus on spending time with my family or talking with family, talking with friends. And we usually don't really talk or think too much about baseball. And I think during the season, that kind of compartmentalizes and helps you kind of flip the page on the next day. It's not really dwelling on what happened during the game, good or bad, just because you're going to have another game the next day. And you have to be kind of as mentally 100% as you can be to attack that day and not really let anything in the past or what's coming in the future really affect it. So, yeah, I guess I kind of evolved and changed at that over time. Is just, um, like I said, just compartmentalizing everything. And once baseball is over, just shift my focus to something else. And when it's time to watch video on the pitcher, even if it's in the morning before the game, you do that. But when you're eating lunch, you shouldn't be multitasking or doing anything else like that. So, um,
I love
yeah,
that.
so
I'm recording from my classroom, and I have a sign that I can see right here. It says, "Be where your feet are." And that's exactly what you're describing. What's the mechanism, either in your head internally or habitually? What are you doing to compartmentalize it? A lot of people listening need that, including myself. After this conversation, I'll still be thinking of ways I could have maybe made it better, or, things like that. But during it, I just want to be here with you. What's your mechanism? What do you say to yourself so that you walk in the hotel or the house and the apartment and all of a sudden it just turns off?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily say too much, but I think going back to like my support system, everyone I feel like's around me on a daily basis, they kind of help me at it because I feel like they're pretty good at being present and staying engaged with me. That if I was kind of somewhere else or thinking about other stuff, it'd kind of go noticed. So I definitely, like I said, that was a big adjustment and learning curve for me, especially in my first year in the minor leagues. I felt like I didn't really have a way to disconnect and do that, and I didn't have any hobbies. So I I would wake up in the morning and think about the game before, and then I'd go to the field and think about that game, and then when I lay my head down to go rest, I'd be thinking about what I did the night before. So having like a I went over it with my family. Like when I call home after games, like it's not baseball talk. Like we're not talking. I'm asking them how their day went, stuff like that. And then when we're with my buddies, like everyone has different hobbies. We just talk about those, whether it be golf or any dumb stuff. But it really isn't usually baseball, except for like I said, when we're at the field, when we're preparing for the game. And I think that's helped me a lot, honestly.
That's interesting because sometimes people would say, I want to surround myself with people who are like minded. And it sounds like you're describing intentionally providing some space and some buffers.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's I think always a time and a place for everything, but I think for me, maybe I overblow it a little more than it actually is in reality. But because I mean, we're always talking the game and talking about stuff that goes on casually, but I think overarchingly, it's not really controlling our thoughts and controlling our like what we're surrounding our day with. Like once it's over, like even today, when once we finish baseball and we're just relaxing at the house, we're watching the soccer game or we're watching my buddy that's living with me. We're watching. He's showing me hunting videos, stuff like that. It's not really like um, we're not really watching baseball highlights or anything like that.
Yeah, it all feeds into this idea that when people picture a professional athlete or a professional baseball player, sometimes it's tough to picture. You think of someone who's living a luxurious life. I'd love for you to paint a brief picture, whatever you're comfortable sharing, about what you did today. You're in Tampa. You did some baseball activities in the middle of December. What did you do today that helped you get 1% better, get closer to your dream?
Yeah. So um, we've been training at the Yankee facility, but before that, I go and hit um, at a different facility in the morning. So we hit from like 7 to 8:30, and then drive to the Yankees complex. We start moving around at like 9, and then the lift starts at 9:30. And then today I think we finished around 11. Did a little defense, and then hit again at the Yankees complex, and then yeah, after that, I mean, it was pretty much like 1 o'clock once all that training ended, and then from there we're just been relaxing. Like I said, watching the soccer game a little bit, and then um, grab a good lunch, grab a good dinner, and then get some rest for the next day.
How much of that training would you say involves coaching from someone in the organization? And even more specifically, tough coaching or coaching you hard to try to institute a new skill that maybe you haven't done at that level yet?
Yeah, I'd say that with the coaching support system that I have to this point, they've been with me for when I'm down here in Tampa. The Yankees coaches have been with me for since I got drafted. Um, my trainers have been with me since I got drafted, and they kind of know me as a person, know what they need out of me physically, and they know kind of what to tell me to get that out of me. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's really ever hard coaching or anything like that, but I think there's a level of call it maybe professionalism that they know what to expect out of me, and I know that they're going to do everything they can to help me get better. And I think that's been proven with all the work and sacrifices they've made for my benefit over the last 3 years. So I just feel like all I can do is give them my best.
To what do you attribute the quick learning curve you had to pick up on that professionalism? Some people go their entire careers and never quite master what it means to be a pro. All reports on you say that, that's something that's a strength.
Um, I appreciate that. I think being part of an organization like the Yankees, and obviously I grew up cheering for them and rooting for them. And when you just think of the Yankees, I feel like a lot of people, their reputation precedes them, and it's a first class through and through organization, and they do everything the right way. So that was my perception going in, and then it was a great revelation. Like when I was in it, that's exactly how everything ran, and um, I had a lot of there was a lot of older guys that I was able to look up to and how they acted, and you really don't need anyone to tell you. You just kind of have to fit in and see how other guys act. Because if you were, I guess, unprofessional, you stand out pretty quickly. So definitely a lot of other guys, and then it's just respect all the coaches and training staffs and strength staffs. Everyone treats everyone with respect, and I feel like the way you do that back is just giving your best, and that's all you can do.
There's a popular phrase: comparison is the thief of joy. And yet, part of a professional baseball scout's job is to compare a player to another player. Often they have to be able to say, this player reminds me of so and so, or turns a double play like so and so. How do you make sense and process that tension there? The idea that comparison is the thief of joy, says some, but we got to compare. And you've mentioned your relationship with older players.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like being in the spot that I'm at in the minor leagues, it's all about development and getting better. And I think a lot of times, for me at least, like the comparison isn't between me and another player. It's kind of me versus myself and how I want to improve myself and get better every single day compared to what I was last year, last week, or yesterday. So I think that comparison, like you said, is good in a way if you do it in the right way and you compare yourself to yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. One scout called you a grinder. How does that word sit with you?
um, I don't necessarily know. I just feel like when I was like going through the draft process and um, talking to scouts, and they're comparing like minor league baseball to pro ball, and they all said like it's a grind, and I'd always ask them like, "What do you mean by that? That it's a grind?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, like you feel ground balls, you hit BP, and then you play a game every single night." And I was like, it sounds amazing to me. Like that sounds like the best part. So I never really I don't know if I necessarily like the word grind just because I feel like it has kind of a negative connotation because like all the hard work or training and everything that's I would rather be doing anything else. So it's really really fun to me to wake up and get to play baseball every day. So I
My,
appreciate it, I guess, if it's coming from a good place, but I guess I don't like the other side of that word.
my guest today is Anthony Volpe, Yankee prospect. I'll choose that word on purpose. That's another problematic word, another dangerous word. I wanted to get your reaction on that because I'm fascinated in this conversation and sharing with people something about the journey, right? Because by all accounts, you're having a successful baseball career. And yet, I know this isn't your ultimate destination or hope where it hopes to be. So when you hear a word like prospect, it seems wrought with like anticipation and success, but not being here. When I throw that word at you, what do you do with it?
Yeah, I think it's obviously an honor to be considered a prospect, but I mean, at the end of the day, I always feel like when I was little, I never dreamed of being a prospect. I dreamed of being, an impactful major leaguer that helps win World Series. So it's an honor and it's encouraging, but at the same time, um, I don't wake up and train and do everything to be considered a prospect. I do it to accomplish higher goals, and I feel like, well, like I said, it's obviously nice and then I guess like a feather in the cap, but um, I feel like it doesn't really change too much.
Can you define for people what you think is meant by the term baseball IQ?
I think it's just thinking the game and being around the game and paying attention, and I think that it's very very layered and there's a lot that goes into it. But um, like I said, I mean, I've had since I was little, since I was coached by Coach Kyle. I mean, I've had so many great coaches that have really helped me along the way and taught me so many things, and um, I'm super super grateful for that. And I think it helps me and all the players that are in our organization now. We have so many great coaches that I think all those little things that you learn over however long you play adds to each individual player's baseball IQ, and I think that's a pretty cool side of the game.
Coach Kyle Wagner, who brought us together, recalls a time where you had let's get this right, a 2.63 put out at the age of 11. I mean, I don't want to expose Coach Kyle for being a fan, but to be able to recall a play like that, and you see that, and it's a play that on a drop third strike, he goes back and thinks about that. Do you remember that play that he's talking about? And do you have a list of other plays like that? And then the rare triple barreled question, which I don't advise, where does that come from, and why doesn't everybody have it?
I do remember the play because I obviously played for Coach Kyle a lot growing up, but that game was against the River Cats, who were playing at Diamond Nation, which was like my original team, and then I'd play on with the River Cats on the other weekends. But I do remember the play. I honestly couldn't tell you really what I was thinking in the moment, but I think like when you say where did that play come from, I think it's just from playing, from being around, like I said, great coaches, but then just getting on the field and having just a million different scenarios that before the ball is hit, you're thinking of all different types of scenarios. And then for me, at least I feel like because I think about it at least a little bit before it happens, that once the play's hit, I'm not really thinking about anything. Once the pitch is thrown, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just letting all my training and instincts and everything take over. And that's where I guess some of that comes from, but it's not necessarily thought through. It's very reaction based, I'd say.
Yeah, let's stay there for a second. That's the nerd heaven for my mind. So I can remember those days to some degree. I want you to try to go a little bit deeper there. You say you're running through scenarios in your head before it happens, but then when it happens, reaction takes over. Nothing like being in live baseball action, but I do get what you're saying from a conversation standpoint. I probably prepared in my head thousands of questions I wanted to ask you, but then once the light goes on, I just want to be present and listen to what you say. So there's some, listen, I'd rather be doing what you're doing, but there's some connection that I can understand. But say a little bit more about that for people, because most reporters won't ask you that. And I always wanted to ask someone like you that. What can you say about running through scenarios in your head before it happens?
Yeah, I think especially playing defense and playing shortstop, there's so many different things that can happen. And you obviously always want the ball to be hit to you, but probably over 80% of the time, it's not going to be hit to you. But as a shortstop, or as really any position on the field, you have a lot of responsibilities, and it's to be a good teammate, you have to be where you're supposed to be to whether it be a cut and relay or in that I guess scenario, if there's drop third strike and there's a guy on first, but you're not going to get him, you always have to be somewhere. One of my first ever coaches taught me that on every single play, every single player has a responsibility on the field, regardless of if it's hit on the complete opposite side of the field. And yeah, I think that's what's pretty cool about baseball, because I guess probably a lot of people think that not much is going on, but as a player, you always have something to do, and there's a lot to, I guess. I mean, I guess there's not too much that you have to be responsible for or aware of, but there's definitely stuff that I feel like to be a good defensive player and to be accountable to your teammates, you just got to be where you're supposed to be.
Numerous times watching highlights, preparing for this conversation, I would see you go into the hole and throw the ball to third base. It's a play that a lot of high level players can make, but it's not often thought about at some levels. Are you literally saying in some fashion in your head, the ball's to my right, I may throw this to third. I got to be aware, though, I could possibly go back door. Like, is that what's the language sound like?
Yeah, it's, I guess we practice it almost every day. That's one of like the different fungo routines that we do. So all that really goes into it is I know that that's a possible play. So I'll just if there's a runner on second or a runner on first and second, I'll notion over to the third baseman like, hey, if it's hit to my right in the hole, I'm going to be coming to you, because sometimes if it's hitting that hole, the third baseman will go after it, and so will I, and no one will be covering third. So just letting them know that like if this ball is hitting the hole, like make sure that that guy's covering the base in case I'm going to throw it over there. So, um, yeah, just like you said, so many different types of plays or types of scenarios that can happen.
Who shows more emotion on the field during a game, dad or you?
um, I don't know. I don't really know. I don't even want to know what he's doing during the games or how he's reacting to stuff. But um, yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
I take it dad will not be able to bring the full energy to the pro level. Is that fair to say?
Hopefully not. But I honestly don't know what he's been doing in the stands. But yeah, it's been at least he's been able to make it to a bunch of games. This past year, I played basically at home, like 15 minutes from our house. So my mom and dad and the rest of my family got to go to a bunch of games, which was awesome. So I definitely always saw them. I don't know if I saw them when things were going either good or bad. So I don't know really how they were reacting, but I know they had a lot of fun.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, but I've seen you get excited in minor league games. Helmet comes off, a lot of emotion being shown, and then I've seen you stoic. Um, what place does emotion have in the professional game?
I think it's natural. I don't really think it's obviously different than in certain times. There's not as much urgency as when I played in high school or when we were playing for Team USA, and if you lose, you're going home, stuff like that. But I just think that you have so many guys on the team and everyone works so hard and wants to perform, and we all really, really want to win that over the course of the season, there's going to be times where it gets really intense and you really want to pull through. And when you do, it's the best feeling in the world just because you know that every single guy on the team works so hard and wants to win so bad that it definitely does feel good when you do it, but it just feels just as good when one of your teammates does it. Because I mean, we're together a lot of times over the year, and you're pulling for each guy like honestly, like he's your brother. You know the ups and downs he's going through, and it's really awesome to watch your teammates' success, in my opinion.
A scout I spoke to before our conversation said that everything you do on the baseball field, or even before, has a purpose. What's an example of that?
Um, I think, like you said, I mean, I think everything does have a purpose, whether it be, um, I think to be consistent is the most important thing in baseball. And for me, what I feel like helps me with that on the field, just because baseball is such a game of failure, you just want to put your best foot forward. I think what really helps me be able to do that is everything that goes on off the field, whether it be going to bed at the same time every night, waking up around the same time every morning, being able to get 2 meals in before I go to the field, and then once you hit the field, that's where your normal baseball routine kicks in. But I feel like for me at least, my pre-game, pre-day, night before routine is honestly just as important.
You going to bed at the same time every night, even now?
Yeah, honestly, just because I'm so so tired after everything and I have to be up early. So for the most part, yeah.
They say baseball is a job, but it's also a game. How do you view that back and forth?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily consider it a job. I think being around the group of guys that I'm around and everyone like that, it feels so much like a game that it's kind of weird when we get our paychecks and we get it, and then real life stuff starts coming in about um, the fact that it is your job. But it really does, especially when you're in the season, feels like a game, and we're so blessed and happy to be able to play it. And I don't think, at least with the guys I'm around, I can't really speak for different guys in different organizations or different teams, but um, it just feels like the vibe in all of the clubhouses I've been a part of so far has been that everyone's just really excited and happy to get to the field every day.
What frustrates you on the baseball field?
Um, a lot of things, but at the end of the day, um, I feel like I definitely get frustrated, but I feel like that's because I care and I want to play well and I want to help the team win. And when you're not doing that, when you're getting to your locker after the game and you don't have any dirt on it, or you didn't feel like you help contribute and help the team win, it's definitely frustrating. But at the same time, it's motivating. And for me, like that's the best part of the minor leagues is that there's another game the next day where you can kind of flip the switch and just try and help the team any way you can.
Baseball's evolving before our very eyes. The sport is seeming to change in many ways. Perception of strikeouts, for example, right? Years ago, striking out, you look at someone like Tony Gwynn or even people like Ted Williams, they just never struck out. And now some people view it differently. What's your relationship to the strikeout right now at this point of your career?
Oh yeah, I hate striking out. Probably one of the most frustrating things that I experienced on the baseball field. But I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I just feel like I want to help the team win, and for me, um, striking out doesn't necessarily help really at all. Even if there's a guy on third base or anything, I feel like if you put the ball in play, you can. There's a chance you help the team, but when you strike out, it's not really helping anybody.
When's the last time you bunted?
I tried to bunt one time this year. I've tried to bunt one time this year and one time last year, and I popped them both up to the pitcher. And after I told myself I'm never bunting again.
Did you do it on purpose, like one of my former players, so he would never get the sign again?
No, no, we it was all me, and I would have had a base hit both times, which probably would have changed my relationship with bunts. But both times right back to the pitcher.
How do you define success?
I think I define success. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a good question, but I just always want to improve, and as long as I feel like I'm improving and hitting certain marks, then the rest I feel like will take care of itself. And that's why I feel like the off season is a really big time to improve and get ready for the next season. And um, yeah, I think just setting goals and just hitting them, I think, really defines success for me.
After 247 episodes of this podcast, I still have a very complicated relationship to the word goals. You read someone like James Clear, Atomic Habits, and he talks about it's the systems, it's the habits, it's not the goals. But then I talk to successful people like you all the time who say I have benchmarks and targets. It, there's really school of thought on both sides. You had just mentioned a moment ago trying to reach certain targets. How do you define those targets? Is it statistics? Is it level of play? Is it effort? Talk a little bit about what you think about when you're trying to do goal setting.
Yeah, I think it's changed throughout my whole life, and I'd say probably when I was in high school, it was very like cut and dry. Like I wanted to make Team USA. I wanted to make my high school team. I wanted to win a state championship. I wanted to win a gold medal. Like it was kind of do or die types of things. And now, like I guess being in the minor leagues, it's been very um probably for the better process driven. It's not cut or dry or it wasn't necessarily I want to make this certain team or do this certain thing. It's just been I want to improve and there's been a lot of different areas I wanted to improve and for me the goal was just always improvement. It wasn't how much improvement or whether it be big or small. It was just to improve my arm strength, improve my bat path, improve my plate discipline, stuff like that. And as long as I feel like I'm inching towards that and getting better and not worse, or at least in some ways, I guess, staying the same. Um, I feel like those are accomplishable goals.
What has the Yankee organization communicated to you about potential major league upcoming service time?
Um, I guess not really any at all, but I just feel like if I, like I said, keep improving, and at the end of the day, I want to make the major leagues and get called up. But I also, at the end of the day, that's not my end all be all goal. My even when hopefully I make it to the major leagues, that's where I feel like the same way really after the draft, it's not the finish line by any means. It's the starting point, and I want to accomplish a lot and be a player that helps the team win. And I feel like with that comes a lot of hard work that starts now and continues throughout my whole career that I feel like I can always get better and always find ways to help the team.
How do you view pressure?
I think pressure is awesome. It's I feel like because I train so hard and love baseball so much and want to play well and want to help the team that if you want to be that type of player, there's going to be quote unquote pressure. And I think you work for that and you train for that, and you want to be that player that's up in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs and the game's on the line. And I just think that that's the best part of the game.
You wore number 7 back in the high school ranks. That number will be, I'm told, taken if and when you make it to the major leagues. What was the story behind picking 7 at the amateur level?
My grandfather's favorite player was Mickey Mantle. So when I was probably 7 or 8 and I had to decide on a number, it was pretty, it organically came about that way. And every time I've been able to, I've worn number 7 since.
Mickey Mantle, overrated or underrated?
Well, definitely biased, but definitely not overrated.
536 home runs, switch hitter from Commerce, Oklahoma. Lost major years to knee injuries and still was producing in just cavernous Yankee Stadium. When I say those things to you, are you nodding along saying I know my history, or were you someone that kind of left the history books aside and kind of just played more? What's your relationship and role in the stewardship of that game from the stat point, and that you see so many different players today?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely not as much of a history buff as a lot of people, but my parents were huge Yankee fans. My grandfather is probably the biggest Yankee fan that I know, but just growing up around them and how much they love the game and love the Yankees in particular, they taught me a lot about the history and just their favorite moments. Not really anything in depth or the stats or anything, but I think what I took the most was their individual personal stories and their moments that they experienced in their lives that I got to experience growing up too. But I think that's probably been the best part of growing up with huge fans as your parents.
What do you think is your secret sauce, so to speak? What's your recipe for success that other people don't do?
Um, I don't know. Maybe I think the fact that for me there is no secret sauce. I feel like what I do is pretty simple, and I just try and train and play and have fun. And I don't really do too much into besides wins and losses, besides any other individual things. And I feel like for me at least, it's pretty freeing, I guess, not really worrying about any of the outside stuff, any of the results really. But I'd say maybe the fact that there is no little thing that I do or anything like that that I feel like helps me makes me successful. It's just simple training, simple work, and trying to win.
What were you like as a high school student?
I definitely worked hard in school and I got good grades, but I just thought my parents taught me since even before I was in high school the importance of schoolwork. And I think what I took from that was just if I thought I was going to be disciplined in baseball, you can't just be disciplined in what you want to do. If you're going to be disciplined, you just have to be disciplined, period. And that extends, you can't not be disciplined in the classroom and expect to be disciplined on the baseball field or at home or anything like that. So I think what they taught me, which what I took through everything, was just if you're going to be consistent and you want to be the player or person you want to be, you have to do it in all walks of your life. And I think that helped me a lot.
If someone followed me around all day, they would hear me quoting movie lines. They would hear me say, I've said the 3 things already: be where your feet are, get to over have to, get 1% better. I feel like damn good conversations. I'm always quotable. I've intentionally left out the other Yankee shortstop that some people might be familiar with, number 2 in this conversation, because I think this is a conversation about you, and we did talk a little bit about comparison. But Derek Jeter famously was not a great quote. I would read it as intentionally never gave great sound bites. Is that something you're aspiring to as you project to be a Yankee shortstop one day?
Um, I don't know. I just feel like I'm pretty simple. I probably if people ask me different types of stuff, I don't know if I'll necessarily give them what they want to hear, but I'll just try and be honest. And I feel like that's kind of all I can do.
And the honesty comes with a smile, Anthony, as we wind down here. I think you smiled more than any guest I've ever had on the show. And I appreciate that, man. And You do have a lot to be happy about, but I mean, you're in the middle of a journey that isn't over yet. So when this conversation's over, you'll go back to what mindset? What will your mindset be in terms of getting ready for the next challenge?
Yeah, I feel like going into this year, I have a really cool opportunity, and I just want to be as ready as I can for that. I want to go into spring training like it's opening day, and I want to be ready to play. I don't want to treat it as getting ready for the season. I want to compete, and I want to try and take advantage of everything, every opportunity that I'll be presented. And um, I just feel like if I do what I have to do and prepare the way I feel like I have to prepare, then the rest will take care of itself. And that's kind of just itching to get back out there.
2 years from now, hopefully we get a chance to connect again. Where do you hope to be?
Well, I hope to have a World Series ring, but yeah, I hope not much has changed. I feel like I'm super lucky and blessed to, like I said, have a great support system and a great group of friends and family. So, um, yeah, hopefully not much has changed except for winning. So,
I appreciate your time, man. This has been a really candid conversation. I appreciate you injecting into your day, a busy day, some moments of reflection and some conversation. I think a lot of people can hear this conversation, Anthony, and say, we're talking to someone who's successful, but still on the climb. What are your final words for someone who may be listening and saying they're trying to make sense of success, but they're at a certain point? I've been thinking a lot about gratitude versus ambition, and you seem to be right at that cornerstone. You have more that you want to do, but you're at a hell of a place. What's your thoughts around that as we close?
um, yeah, I think that I'm in a pretty cool situation, but I feel like everyone is. I feel like um, there's no, I always say it, or my dad always tells me, and we always kind of agree on is I'm 21 now, but there's no 21-year-old who's reached their ceiling. There's really good 21-year-olds. You could be really good, but you better hope that you're a better version of yourself when you're 22, 23, and older. And I think that mindset has helped me to improve since I thought the same thing that there's no 19-year-old that was good enough or reached their ceiling. But um, yeah, I just kind of feel that way about it, that there's always more work to be done and you can always get better at something, regardless of if it's the thing you're the best at or the thing that you're the worst at.
I'm excited for you, man. I really am.
Thank you.
He's Anthony Volpe. Thank you so much, Anthony, for spending some time with us today on 1% Better.
Thanks so much for having me.